Most of us check our mix balance at loud levels, but that can fool your ears. Here's a faster way to know if your mix balance is working. All right, got this N64 shirt recently, so I'm ready. Okay, today's gonna be a bit of a shorty video. I have this Frankenstein Spindrift because it kind of froze in my studio fridge, so I took it out and now I'm drinking it. But today's gonna be a bit of a shorty video. We're gonna talk about this really quickly and then we're gonna be done. I'm not gonna take too much of your time. So the basic idea here is that a lot of us like to listen loud. I like to listen loud. I do it all the time. I really enjoy it. I know I shouldn't be doing it. I know I should be doing it less and less, because the thing is, when you listen very loud, it's fun, it's satisfying, but it does damage your ears. So there's a whole negative aspect to it that is beyond the topic of this video, but it can actually cause hearing damage, and then that can make your mixing worse over time. I don't think I need to explain the why on that, but it can make things more of a struggle for you over time. So the trick here today is not only good for improving your mixes overall, but it's also good for your hearing in the long term. So the idea is that you should listen to your mixes quietly. You should probably monitor your mixes at a quieter level than you are now. Now, you might be like, Kato, you don't know what level I'm monitoring at. And you're right, I don't. But I know that a lot of people like to monitor things very loudly. I hear that more than anything else. And it's actually pretty rare that I hear people monitoring at a very low level. And I'm talking low enough that you can talk over it at a normal conversation level and not have any trouble understanding what the person's saying to you in the room. The level where it's almost like it's a background sound. It could be a background sound at that level. So over the years, and especially when I was in school years ago, the recommendation was to listen back at or around like 82 to 85 decibels and not to go above that. And so that when we talk about that, we're talking about the actual sound pressure level in the air. So in order to know whether you're actually monitoring at that level, you have to get something called a decibel meter to read what level you're actually monitoring at. And so I, in the past, have used apps on my phone that will give you a reading. They're not as accurate. They're not as good as getting an actual dedicated decibel meter, an actual device. And actually, I can show you something like that really quick. So there are this type of decibel meter. So this is more of like a handheld decibel meter. People use these for various purposes. It's not all audio engineers that use these. This is what you might see if someone's like trying to monitor how loud something is from the street or what have you. And these are good. These are useful. They tend to be pretty accurate, right? But you can also get decibel meters that work the same way, but they're kind of designed to be put somewhere in a studio. So they have this type of a display instead. They're made to be placed somewhere. And you want to be careful about where you place it, right? If you place the decibel meter across the room, it's going to be less accurate for where you're sitting, what is actually hitting your ears, than if you place it near where your ears actually are. So you can get something like a decibel meter to know what level you're actually monitoring at, because that's going to depend on how loud you set your computer output for. It's not dependent on, for example, what the level is coming out of your master fader, right? It's actually dependent on that volume knob on your headphones, on your studio monitor output. And it's actually describing the sound pressure level in the air, not the decibel level that's within your computer. So anyway, a lot of people will monitor kind of loud, in the 80s. Sometimes people get really loud, and that can actually go into the realm of damaging your hearing. So people might monitor even louder than 80 something. Sometimes you can get decibel meters that will beep at you if you get above a certain threshold. Those are very, very helpful, especially if you're new to the game or you're working in a studio where there are students. You might want to put one in there to help them kind of monitor what they're doing. But oftentimes people are monitoring very, very loud. And this concept of monitoring quieter is not new, right? Oftentimes when we learn to mix, we learn to monitor at a certain level and then often bring it down, listen quietly, bring it up, listen a little bit louder than we usually do. We're taught to listen at a variety of different loudness levels, and that's because it will sound different to us depending on how loud we're listening. So one thing that I've noticed, and many other people have noticed, again, it's not just me, right, is that if you listen at a very quiet level, something that would easily go under the level at which I'm speaking now, then you're going to notice if, for example, the vocals are a little too loud or a little too quiet in the mix. When you bring down that level, you're going to notice if it's out of whack a lot faster. Certain things are going to fall away or become too prominent if you have them a little bit too loud or a little bit too quiet in the mix. I've also noticed the same thing. Vocals are one of the ones that pops out, right? But also bass is one of the things that will become very apparent if you haven't mixed it properly for what you want in the mix. And that's because at lower levels, lower sound pressure levels, our ears are less sensitive to bass and treble frequencies. So if you're listening at a lower level and you're mix still feels balanced and good, then you're probably pretty solid. So why is that? Well, it's because of something called the Fletcher-Munson curves. You might have also heard them called the equal loudness curves, the equal loudness contours. There's a few different names that they tend to go by. Hey, it's Editing Kato here. So I just wanted to jump in because I didn't really clarify this in the video, and I probably should have clarified just to be thorough. But technically, Fletcher-Munson curves are a more specific example of the more generic equal loudness contour, equal loudness curves. So you might see some of those charts where it looks like a Fletcher-Munson, looks like an equal loudness, but there's multiple versions. There's like 2 different colors on the chart, for example. And so there are slightly different versions of these curves. They all tend to have the same kind of pattern going. They all look very similar, but they'll have just slightly different curves, slightly different shape overall. And so I'm using them interchangeably. But technically, there are a few different iterations of these. It's basically different versions of these experiments that have happened, developed different curves, and they're all very, 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 very similar. So I'm using them interchangeably, but technically there are 2 different things, the Fletcher-Munson versus equal loudness contours. Fletcher-Munson is a more specific term, and equal loudness contours often refers to something that is a more recent study or more recent batch of research. But I've pulled up an image here from Wikimedia Commons, and it's showing you the Fletcher-Munson curves. So that's what these are. And you'll notice here on the x-axis, we have frequency in hertz, and then on the y-axis, we have decibels. So that's actual sound pressure level in the air. And you'll notice here at the x-axis that it goes from 20 hertz, that's considered the lower range of human hearing, up to above 10,000 hertz, maybe getting closer to 20,000 hertz, which is the upper range of human hearing. So that's the entire range of frequencies that we tend to be able to hear. There's some variation between individual to individual. As you get older, you tend to lose some of these, but that's considered the range of human hearing. So what they did to get this graph is they asked a bunch of people what sounds like it's at the same loudness level. So you can imagine that each of these red lines is the same loudness across the spectrum. So for example, to be the same loudness at 10,000 hertz, it would have to be this loud in decibels and sound pressure level, as for example, around 1,000 hertz, it only has to be this loud to sound like it's the same loudness to a human ear. So what you notice with these curves very quickly is that we are less sensitive in the upper frequencies, and there's a quick drop off here, and then we are less sensitive in the lower frequencies. So for example, in order for something to feel, we look at this 20 line, right? Feel like it's along this 20 line. If it's at 100 hertz, it has to be, did I trace this properly? Yeah, it has to be around here. So what is this? Maybe 50 dB. Whereas for it to be at the 20 line, for example, at 1,000 hertz, it only has to be 20 dB, right? So you'll notice that we are much less sensitive in the lower frequencies and the upper frequencies. And there's actually kind of a peak around here. We're very sensitive to like 1,000 hertz and a little bit above that, right? We are very, very sensitive to those frequencies. And it makes sense. That's where a lot of the transients are, a lot of the stuff within the human voice, a lot of our harmonic content. A baby crying is often around this range, right? So if you think about it, we could apply a ton of logic that is trying to figure out, you know, what we evolved to hear. And these curves reflect that. And I think that's pretty cool, to be honest. Okay, so what does this tell us? One, it tells us that we don't hear linearly, right? The way that we actually hear and perceive loudness is going to be weighted depending on the frequency content of what we're hearing. For example, you can't just say something's at 60 dB, so therefore everything at 60 dB is going to sound like a certain loudness to us. So as humans, we often might hear things that are actually at the same exact sound pressure level, but we might perceive them as a different loudness level from each other. And we talk about this range. This is what's considered to be the mid-range in the frequency spectrum, roughly. So we have a ton of mid-range sensitivity. So how does this affect our mix? Well, you might notice as we turn things down, this curve is going to get more extreme. You'll notice up here, it's much flatter overall than down here, right? So as we change our loudness level of what we're listening back, we're actually going to hear a different balance in the frequencies of our mix. So that is a big part. This graph is the explanation for why we want to listen at different loudness levels and why it can often be very good to listen at a lower level. So a good thing to do is to listen at a quieter level, monitor at a quieter level while you're mixing. And if you can't stand doing that, that's something I often often choose not to do myself. I like listening to things a little bit louder as much as possible, but just make sure that you are turning it down and listening back quietly, because you might notice, oh, the vocals are very different in the mix when I turn it down. So, try it out. Monitor your mix at a much quieter level. See if you notice certain things like the vocals or the snare or the bass have a very different balance in your mix. And you might want to, for example, adjust the levels in the mix. You might want to adjust the saturation on the bass so it'll pop out more. And, lots of the mixers and mastering engineers that I learned from that are at the top of the industry, they often listen to things at a much quieter level than the rest of us too. This is something that's been catching on in the industry, especially in recent years, the past 10 years or so. That's something that I've noticed at least. So it's something that the professionals are doing, the people at the top of the industry are doing. And the way they tend to do it from the people that I've seen that do this is they monitor very quietly most of the time, and then they'll only crank it up for short periods of time to get a quick check on the mix at a louder level. So that's it. That's the whole idea for today. What I want you to do, I'm going to give you a homework assignment. This is a little weird, but I'm going to do it. So what I want you to do is try turning your monitors way down to a very quiet level and having a listen and see how it changes how you perceive your mix, and see what changes you make. And let me know in the comments below what you heard and how you changed it, and what you found out when you did this exercise. And kind of as a bonus, this isn't quite the same topic, but another idea that's very similar in my mind is the idea of doing a hallway test. So when I worked in big commercial studios with multiple rooms, we would do this very often, which is where you hit play on the mix, especially towards the end of the process, and you go out into the hallway and you kind of listen passively from out in the hallway and see what pops out to you. So I often do similar things around the house. I'll put something on while I'm cooking or cleaning, put something on my shower speaker or my cell phone or my sound bar, and kind of like walk around and get a little bit distracted so that I'm passively listening. And then I would notice what pops out in the mix as a problem still. So that's another great trick that you can use to level up your mixes. If you don't have a hallway, it doesn't have to be a hallway. That's just kind of what I've heard it called, is the hallway test. It's just the idea that you do a passive listen and notice what pops out. And so this is a little bit different from, for example, doing a car listen or doing like different mix checks in different environments, because with those, you're listening more actively. This is on purpose a passive listen so that you'll notice what pops out to you and what becomes very apparent that it feels wrong or takes you out of the groove with the song. Okay, I think that's about it. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. It probably was kind of short, but as always, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'd appreciate all of that stuff. I have a Patreon, so it's patreon.com/CatoNoise, and we have additional content. We have a Discord server that we're all hanging out on. The Discord server is the big thing that I've been focusing on lately for the Patreon patrons. There's also early release videos. We have a book club that we're running on the Discord server. It's a lot of fun, so I think you can join for as little as $1 a month, so please check that out if you feel so inclined. It helps keep my channel independent. It helps support my channel. And if you might want me to work on your music, please go to catonoise.com, CATONOISE.com, and click the Get Started button. That's my website. And what it'll do is it'll ask you a few questions about your music, and then it'll take you to a calendar where you can book a call with me to talk about your project. So it's a Zoom call, it's a free call. And the whole point of the call is to talk about your music, talk about your project, see if we might be a good fit, and see if we might want to work together. So please feel free to do that. And other than that, thank you so much for hanging out on my channel. I come out with new videos every Wednesday, and I'll see you next time. Okay. I don't know what else is new. Oh, I started watching that show on Netflix called Hitmakers. I think it's called Hitmakers. And I've really been enjoying it. I feel like I probably shouldn't talk about it too much, but I do have feelings about some of the interpersonal dynamics that are on the show, which, I mean, that's the whole point of a reality show, right? And it's fun to see some people that I know on there. So yeah, if you haven't heard about it, it's on Netflix. It's called Hitmakers. If you're interested in like the music production space, the music production world, I'd definitely check it out. It's basically a bunch of top-notch producers are put together and told to write songs within like 6 hours for a specific artist. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of the whole gist of it. But yeah, it's reality. It's a reality show. I don't normally get into reality shows at all, but I have been watching this one and I've been enjoying it. So I guess I'm getting into it.